Jimbo Fisher's roughly $77 million buyout at Texas A&M in 2023. LSU Athletic Director Scott Woodward was responsible for both of those, Fisher and Kelly's buyouts. Yesterday, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry spoke on how LSU plans to find their next head coach. And Woodward will not
I can tell you right now, Scott Woodward is not selecting the next coach. The Board of Supervisors is going to come up with a committee, and they're going to go find us a coach. This is a pattern. The guy that's here now that wrote that contract cost Texas A&M $70-something million. Right now, we got a $53 million liability. We are not doing that again. And you know what? I believe that we're going to find a great coach. I mean, maybe we'll let President Trump pick it. He loves winners. You know, I'm not going to be picking the next coach. But I can promise you, we're going to pick a coach, and we're going to make sure that that coach is successful. And we're going to make sure that he's compensated properly. And we're going to put metrics on it. Because I'm tired of rewarding failure in this country.
Wow. Lot to unpack there. RC, as our resident LSU Tiger, what do you think of what Governor Landry
First off, it's the second most ridiculous thing he said this week. The first was standing on campus and saying he wanted to put a statue up of somebody that doesn't represent the people of Louisiana, doesn't represent the players and the students at LSU, doesn't represent the executives that work there. That was the first dumb thing he said this week. This is the second dumbest, right? Amongst a lot of dumb things that he says. Scott Woodward, for whatever he is a man who got Jay Johnson, right? Last I checked, the 2025 Louisiana State University Tiger baseball team was in the White House getting the GAT recently, right? He was there in 2019 when it's one of the greatest college football teams of all time. He also was there when he said, you know what, we're going to go out and get Kim Mulkey, right? She brings a championship to the school with Angel Reese and with Flau'jae Johnson. And so to me, this is another situation of politicians poking their nose into things that they don't know about. And I honestly believe it was so he can get in front of a microphone and say, look at this connection I have to the president, and he likes to pick winners so he could placate to somebody he idolizes. You don't know nothing about football. There's enough going on in the state of Louisiana that needs to be fixed for its constituents. Well, I don't need you tweeting on Saturday night about what's going on in Tiger Stadium. There is too many issues happening right there under your nose that ain't got nothing to do with sports. Scott Woodward is a good man. Scott Woodward is a man that cares about LSU. In the greatest times, back in the day, he understood what it was like to be a part of a winner, and he's brought more winners back to the school. He didn't miss because Brian Kelly wasn't capable. He missed because Brian Kelly was no longer willing. Brian Kelly was no longer tapped in. Brian Kelly didn't care if the people of Louisiana cared about him, and he didn't care if the players knew that he cared about them. That's where it went wrong. Not in picking a man who was the winningest all-time coach in Notre Dame history. And so for me, it's emotional, clearly, and it pisses me off, but Scott Woodward deserves to pick the next head coach, and the governor should stay out of it.
Hold on. First of all, to speak about LSU and the character of that university and Brian Kelly, no pushback there. You would know. You talk about this governor, yeah, he sounded idiotic because I get tired of these politicians. And just a clue for everybody else, every time you see somebody fawning over the president, like the president got other stuff he's doing. He ain't got nothing to do with LSU. What you bringing him up for? It's almost like they're using it as an opportunity to fawn over him, to get engaged in getting his good graces. So that's very, very transparent, and I get where you're coming from. But that's all I have to say about the governor, other than the fact that he sounded funny as hell. Here's what I would tell you about Brian Kelly. You're absolutely right in terms of Woodward and not making the wrong pick, because we all know that Brian Kelly could coach. And when he came over from Notre Dame, from a football standpoint, we didn't consider it a bad hire. But the negotiation matters. What the hell were you doing putting yourself in a position where this man could get a $54 million buyout to not coach football? Why is your name associated with a $76 million buyout for somebody else to not coach football? That is $130 million for two coaches who are literally being paid to sit at home. Now that part is on your watch. And what I mean by that is that doesn't mean, RC, that Scott Woodward is not a good man. It doesn't mean, and I made sure to emphasize this, I never once said, like when I was talking about him the other day, I didn't say he should be fired. I didn't sit up there. I noticed the baseball coach he hired, he bring you 2 national championships. Kim Mulkey, she's going to cover national championships. He hired her. I mean, the man he's picked some winners now. I'm just saying, if you're Scott Woodward somewhere, you have to understand if it were anybody else, if it was a player, if it was anybody else that had their name attached to 2 buyouts in excess of $130 million. $130 million, okay? $130 million. To not coach, that's not the greatest look. That's all. But I get where you're coming from with everything else.
And it's the top. It's the top 2 football buyouts of all time.
The top 2 football. That is the point. And so, in other words, not the coach.
Yeah.
It's the negotiation with the coach.
That makes sense.
That's the same.
I have a question. Irregardless of the politic element of it, that's so far above my brain. Do you think him coming out and saying this will deter or could deter coaching candidates? Because the coaching candidates then have the understanding of the athletic director doesn't really have a say in what's going on. It's the people controlling me as the puppet. Is that a thing?
To me, no, because I think that the landscape that we're living in, folks are knowledgeable enough to understand the bureaucracy that comes with supposed institutions of higher learning.
But to me, though, if I'm Lane Kiffin, not saying that that's who's going to be the coach, why would I want to go deal with that? I got a sweet spot.
You got to answer to.
Yeah, I got a sweet spot at Ole Miss. And so now it's going to be hiring a coach who sees the opportunity to coach at LSU as bigger than the bureaucracy that surrounds it. That's hard.
And not only that, now they're going to be guarding the money because you heard them complaining about the money. So now they're going to be like, all right, we got to negotiate deals in a way where we don't find ourselves in a position where we get a buyout like that. There you go. So the elite coach is going to be like, man, I don't need that problem.
Yeah.
And you're against Florida and Penn State and so many other top programs. Interesting times.
Yeah, man.
Cap pressures. The Lions, 5-2 behind the Packers for first place in the NFC North. Green Bay, though, has the shortest odds to win the division at -125, according to ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Packers did dominate the Lions in Week 1. The two do meet again in Week 13 in Detroit. Stephen A., I start with you. Are the Lions or the Packers the better team in the NFC North?
Me personally, I'm going to sit up there and say for the moment you have to give it to the Green Bay Packers because the last time we saw them going up against each other, Green Bay stomped them, and we get that, although that was Week 1, and we understand that. We're still waiting to see what's going to happen with Detroit on the defensive side of the ball when it really, really counts. I think that when we look at them, think about their potency offensively. You know who Jared Goff is. You know who Amon-Ra St. Brown is. You know who Gibbs is. You've seen what he's done. You see how electrifying they could be. But then we saw them go to Kansas City and get neutralized, right? And we saw them having an ability to really, really neutralize KC. So you're wondering about them defensively, and that remains to be seen. You look at Jordan Love and what Green Bay's bringing to the table. You look at what Micah Parsons and Gary brought to their defense. They can get at the quarterback. You've seen, Micah Parsons win basically a couple of games over the last couple of weeks because of his ability to get to the quarterback. And you're saying that could obviously be the difference. I got to wait to see it because I don't think the team that Green Bay saw in Week 1 is who they're going to see when they see them again. But until further notice, we got to give props where props is due to the right now #1 seed in the NFC. By the way, Austin Reeves, Wichita State, then Oklahoma. But go ahead.
Okay.
Good recall. I think Detroit's the best team in the NFC North. I think Detroit's the best team in the NFC. I think Detroit's the best team in the NFL.
Whoa!
Wow.
Who can beat you more ways? Who can, from a football team perspective, beat you more ways? So can the Detroit Lions, if they have to, throw it all around the yard and beat you? It's one of the best pass games in the NFL. Quarterback playing as good as just about any quarterback in the NFL. What happens if they need to run the ball 40 times and beat you? Can they do that? No question about it. They got the best running back duo in ball, and I would make the case one of the best offensive lines in football. So offensively, whatever defense does to them, they can get.
When they play the Cardinals.